Hello, dear students. I welcome you all on behalf of Sri Jayendra Rank Zone classes. Dear student, we are in a continuation of the chapter that is transport in plant, and we have already completed with the short distance transport in plant, and in long distance transport also we have already discussed that how the water and minerals are getting absorbed by the root head and how they are transported through the symplast and apoplast pathway from the epidermal layer to the center, near about the center part, which has a xylem, or we can say root xylem. So how the water reach to the root xylem from the root hair, that is explained by the symplast apoplast pathway, that also we have discussed. Now after reaching water minerals to the root xylem, how they are moved to the upper parts or aerial parts of the plant, that we are going to discuss here. That is water movement of a plant, means how water move in upper side of the plant. So if we talk about the water movement up a plant, we looked at how plant absorb water from the soil and move it into the vascular tissue, that we have discussed. Now let us try to understand how this water is transported to the various parts of the plant. Okay, that we have to discuss. Okay, so for this, the two theories have been explained. One is root pressure theory, and another one is the, we can say, transpiration pull theory. These two are responsible for the water movement up a plant. Okay, and in that, the first we are going to talk about the root pressure theory, and then we will talk about the transpiration pull theory. Okay, so if we talk about root pressure, as various ions from the soil are actively transported into the vascular tissue of the root. Now we know that ions or minerals are transported or absorbed actively or passively. Mainly the ions or minerals are absorbed actively because they are charged ion, and the concentration of the minerals in root is more compared to the surrounding soil. So the concentration, against the concentration gradient transport occurs. So because of this, active transport is seen in the ions and the minerals into the vascular tissue of the root. And when the minerals and the ions are get accumulated in the root hair, water follows. Water will do? Water follows the potential gradient and increases the pressure inside the xylem. And that pressure will be known as a root pressure or positive hydrostatic pressure, that is developed due to the accumulation of the water. So this is the xylem, and in that the particular root pressure develops. And root pressure will be responsible for the transport. Now, when the root pressure get accumulated and that develop, it is a positive pressure, and this root pressure is responsible for the pushing up water to small height in the stem. This positive pressure is called the root pressure and is responsible for pushing water to a small height in the stem. Okay, so water is absorbed. Now water moving to the particular upper plant, but this root pressure is that much pressure that it can push a water up to the small heights in the plant. So in order to see the existence of root pressure, that either root pressure is developing or not, we have to select a small soft stem plant, and on a day when there is a plenty of atmospheric moisture. When there is a plenty of atmospheric moisture, we have to cut a soft stemmed plant and cut the stem horizontally near the base with a sharp blade early in the morning. So when we cut this early in the morning with the sharp blade, this soft stemmed plant, you will see that soon see a drops of solution oozing out from the cut stem. From one end of the cut stem, you will see the drops are oozing out. This happens due to the positive root pressure, and here it is shown that how we need to cut the suction. So if we cut the suction like this horizontally, you will see like this the drops are coming out. So if you fix a rubber tube to the cut stem as a sleeve, you can actually collect and measure the rate of exudation or rate of release of this water droplets in the early morning, and we can determine the composition of exudate also. So here you can see this is the cut section. Okay, here this is the rubber tube. Okay, and here this is the particularly funnel is given. So whatever the cut plant will release the water that will be get accumulated in this tube, and you can see this is the water. So the effect of root pressure is also observable at night and early morning when evaporation low, usually because in root when root pressure will be active, it will be pushing the water, and so water will be releasing in the form of droplet. So when water is releasing in the liquid state, it means there should be a low in the temperature. So the effect of root pressure is also observable at night and early morning, because in early morning and night you will see the evaporation is low, transpiration is low, and excess of water collects in the form of droplet around the special opening of the vein near the tips of grass blades, means grass lamina, and the leaves of many herbaceous part. Such water loss in its liquid phase is known as guttation. The loss of water in the form of liquid phase, it is known as guttation. So you can see this is the see you can see these are the droplets which are coming out. Okay, so this is what a guttation. This is what you can see. This is the example of guttation. Okay, so this is the loss of water in the form of liquid droplet. It is nothing but it is a guttation. So now root pressure at can at best only possible a modest push. It will provide only modest push in the overall process of water transport. Because of this, it is helpful for the water movement up in a plant into the short heighted plant. It obviously does not play a major role in the water movement in a tall trees such as sequoia, sempervirens, that is impossible. In will a transpiration pool will be active that we will discuss. And this is the sequoia sempervirens, and in that the transpiration pool will be active. So the greatest contribution of the root pressure is made to re-establish the continuous chain of water column in the xylem that is often break under the enormous tension created by transpiration. So what happens when transpiration will happen? The loss of water will occur in the form of vapor, and ultimately when it occurs from the leaves or the intercellular spaces of the leaves. When water loss in vapor in form of vapor occur from there, it will pull up or it will absorb take up a water from the xylem. So due to this, what will happen? Continuous the pooling of water will occur, and the xylem has a water channels, water columns. That water columns break. So if water column break, there is a need of push, and that push will ultimately re-establish the continuous chain of water column. Okay, so you can see this is the how the particular this is the surfaces from where water is losing. Okay, and it is water is coming. Now if this is the water, here a xylem is there. Now if it is pulling the water, the water column or water column is there. Now this may break due to this what this tension. If this water column is breaking in this, then the root pressure from this side will provide a modest push. This will ultimately help to re-establish this chain. Okay, so this is the one of the role of root pressure. Okay, so now how the root pressure is developing, let's decide one by a hypothetical diagram. Suppose this is the stem. Okay, and it is a stem xylem. This is leaf xylem. Okay, so now what will happen? Suppose minerals or ions are there, and they are particularly getting absorbed, and they are reaching in the this root xylem. Now water will follow this, and when water get accumulated here, this is the water. Okay, so this water is getting So water and minerals will accumulated. Now when they are getting accumulated, they will develop a pressure at a certain time, period of time. The root xylem will be filled and water get accumulated in the surrounding cells. So what will happen when the water get accumulated in the surrounding cells? They will push this root xylem from both the sides. So because of this, the pressure which is developed in the surrounding cell and which are pushing this root xylem, that is actually a root pressure. And due to this, the water and mineral, this will pushed upward. Okay, so water and minerals are pushed upward. Okay, and if they are pushed upward, they will reach to this particular point. Okay, now here what happens, we know that here there are mesophyll cells and here there are vein endings. So sometimes you will see that there is some pores here through which this water is removed in the form of liquid. So such type of these pores are there from which the water is removed in the form of liquid. So these pores are known as hydathodes. And through these hydathodes, the ultimately water is released in the form of liquid droplet due to the root pressure. Okay, so this way how the root pressure develops. Okay, now so root pressure is positive hydrostatic pressure, and that positive hydrostatic pressure is responsible for the what pushing the water to the up in the plant. It is functional in short heighted plants for water loss in form of droplets. Okay, and that will be responsible for the what guttation. So now what is guttation that we have to discuss. So when we talk about a guttation is known as loss of xylem sap, loss of xylem sap in the form of liquid drops from the uninjured margins of leaves. And when there is a loss of xylem sap in the form of liquid droplets from the uninjured margins of the leaves, then it is known as guttation. And it occur through, or it take place through hydathodes. It takes place through hydathodes. And these hydathoids are a special type of stomata, or we can say they are just a small pore, but they are also known as water stomata. They are also known as water stomata. And these hydathoids remain open throughout the day and night, because they are just a simple pore, okay, through which this particular takes place. Suppose I am drawing a just, this is the leaf xylem, and I am drawing just leaf. So this is the mesophyll cell. Suppose this is the veins ending, and this is the pore. So this pore is hydathod, but we remember that there is some loose parenchymatous tissue which are located at the base of this, and they have intercellular spaces, and through which the ultimately water is reached here. So this is the epitheme, and this epitheme consists of loose parenchymatous tissue, a loose parenchymatous tissue, and through this loose parenchymatous tissue, water loss occur in the in the form of droplet. Okay, so this also help in the particularly what a guttation. Now after this, if we talk about the guttation drops, then it is known that the guttation drops contain dissolved organic dissolved organic and inorganic substances. Okay, so this guttation drop contains some dissolved organic and inorganic substances. So we know that guttation is driven by a root pressure. We have also seen that guttation is seen in the late night and early morning, and we have understood about the epithelium tissues. Now, this is seen in, so the guttation is seen in some plants like grasses, tomato, balsam, colocasia, and some plants of cucurbitaceae family. Some plants of cucurbitaceae family. So in that, the particularly this thing take place. Okay. Now we remember one more important point, that this guttation is due to the root pressure, and obviously root pressure play a major role in water movement up, do not play a major role in water movement in tall trees, but root pressure is measured by one important point is that root pressure is measured by one instrument that is known as manometer. So we remember manometer is used to measure root pressure. Now, apart from this guttation, there is one more term which is known as exudation and bleeding. So, if you talk about exudation or bleeding, dear student, it is known that the term exudate derived from the Latin word that means to ooze or to remove. Okay, so this is the exudation or a bleeding is how it differ from the guttation. Then exudation is emission of is is emission of liquid from injured parts of plant, and if exudation is a guttation was from the uninjured, but it is from the injured parts of plant. When the particularly this water loss occur, then it is known as exudation. And it is known that root pressure is responsible for this. So now how the exudation is applicable. So if we talk about application of exudation, then the first is sugar is obtained from maple. Sugar is obtained from sugar maple, that is due to the exudation. The second thing, the opium, which we also called as the latex, that is obtained from a power or opium plant, and that is due to the exudation. The next thing, the rubber, which is also one type of latex, is obtained from rubber tree, that is due to exudation. And D, the toddy, that is obtained from toddy plant. Now toddy is one type of traditional drink which is used in South India, and it is obtained from the toddy plant. It is actually toddy palm, not a plant. Toddy palm, and that toddy palm is also known as Caryota urens. And it is known that in toddy palm, highest bleeding is reported, that is a 50 liters per day. The 50 liters of this particular palm can be obtained from the Caryota urens from the injured plants by this exudation. So that is how root pressure and exudation work, and how these particularly are different. Now, after discussion of root pressure, guttation, and bleeding and exudation, we have understood that root pressure does not account for the majority of water transport. Most plants meet their need by the transpiration pool. So we have to discuss the transpiration pool. So next is the transpiration pool. Now, as we have discussed, the root pressure is a positive hydrostatic pressure. When we talk about a transpiration pool, despite the absence of heart or circulatory system in the plant, the flow of water upward through the xylem in a plant can achieve fairly high rate up to 50 meters per hour, 15 meters per hour, because root pressure were responsible for the short heighted plant. But in long heighted plant, if you want to take a water up in the plant, then transpiration pool will play a role, and it can take a water in a xylem at the 15 meters per liter per hour. Particularly we can say that at this particular rate. Now, a long standing question is whether water is pushed or pulled through the plant. Then we remember, in root pressure, due to the root pressure, the water is pushed up the plant. But if we talk about the this transpiration pool, it is going to pull the water. It is responsible for pulling force. It is responsible for the pulling of this. So most researchers agree that water is mainly pulled through the plant, and that have the driving force for this process is transpiration from the leaves. So in transpiration pool, the pulling of water will take place, and in root pressure, the pushing of water will take place. So this is referred to as a cohesion tension transpiration pool theory. The transpiration pool theory is explained for the understanding of the transpiration pool, and that transpiration pool theory is also known as cohesion tension transpiration pool model of water transport. And this model was proposed by Dixon and Zolli in 1914. Okay, so we remember Dixon, put forward by Dixon and jolly. Okay, and this is the cohesion tension transpiration pull theory of for the xylem transport for the pulling of water up in the long heighted plant. And this will be explained like this. You can see here in root hair the soil particles are there, xylem is there, this is the xylem, and in this water molecules are there, this is the dot dot structures of the water molecules. These water molecules are there in the root xylem as well, stem xylem as well. And in this stem xylem, you will see the cohesive and adhesive force. The cohesion is the particularly exist between the two similar component, and the two similar component are the nothing but the water molecules. So cohesion by hydrogen bonding between the water molecules. So cohesion exists between the two water molecules, but there is a cell wall. So when a water molecule attached with the cell wall, there is a dissimilarity in the surfaces. So adhesion, that is due to the polarity of water molecule, and when the water molecule attached to the cell wall, that is the adhesion will occur. And when we see in the leaf, the xylem in the leaf vein, you will see there are water molecules. These are water molecules are moving outside through the stomata, and there are a mesophyll cell. So this cohesion tension will be responsible for this particular transpiration pool. How this work? Let's discuss. So let us understand what generates transpiration pool. First, what is transpiration pool theory that we need to understood. First, we have to understand what is how transpiration pool is generated. So water is transition transient means water will be going to remain in a plant for a certain period of time. Okay, after the absorption, after a certain period of time, it will be removed out of the plant. And when the water is pulled upward to the leaves, it is known that less than 1% of the water reaching the leaves, less than 1% of the water reaching the leaves is used in the photosynthesis and the plant growth. So the plant is growing, less than 1% is used for the photosynthesis and the plant growth, and most of it, that is 99% plus, is lost through the stomata in the leaves, that is for the through the transpiration. Okay, so majority loss occur through the transpiration, but less than 1% is used in the particularly what a particularly photosynthesis and growth. So the water loss from the plant in the form of water vapor is known as transpiration. So what is transpiration? The loss of water in the form of water vapor, it is known as transpiration. So when transpiration occur, that occur from the leaves and the water content in the leaves getting decreased. So the transpiration driven what will happen? The transpiration will occur and the water loss will occur from the leaves, and when in the leaves the water will be deficient, the leaves veins will pull the water from the stem xylem. So the transpiration driven ascent of xylem stem means from the stem xylem, the particularly the xylem water and mineral, that is the xylem sap or xylem content, is getting pulled up, or it pulled up, or it moves upward, that is the ascent of xylem stem, that depend mainly on the following physical properties of the water, that is the cohesion. One is the cohesion, and cohesion is a mutual attraction between the water molecules, and adhesion, that is the attraction of water molecule to the polar surfaces or to the cell wall. So if we want water want to move upward through the xylem, it have to attach to the its wall, or the particular xylem wall, and xylem water molecule have to get attracted to each other. So this cohesion and adhesion properties will play a role in maintaining the water column. Okay, and due to this, the adhesion, that is between the water molecule and the xylem cell wall, and the cohesion between the water molecule, that two things will help for the upward movement. Okay, now transpiration pull driven force for upward movement of water will occur, and the transpiration pull will develop, and that transpiration pull will be responsible for this particular maintaining cohesion and adhesion. Now apart from this, it is also known that the mainly on the physical properties of water like the cohesion and adhesion, and the third property is also there, that is known as surface tension. And it is known that so water molecules are attracted to each other in liquid phase more than to water in gas phase. Okay, so water molecules are attracted to each other, attracted to each other in liquid phase more than more than to water in gas phase. Okay, so this surface tension is also responsible, and these properties are responsible given giving high tensile strength, which is the ability to register pulling force, and also help in high capillarity, that is the ability to rise in the thin tubes, and due to which the water can reach or water column is going to be maintained. So driving transpiration pool, which is the driving force for the upward movement of water in majority of the plant. So these properties give water ultimately high tensile strength, that is an ability to resist a pulling force as we have discussed, high capillarity, that is the ability of a rise in a thin tubes, and due to this particular capillary what these properties, the water column is going to be maintained. So in plant, capillarity is added by the small diameter of the trachea element, that is the tracheids and vessels, they have a small diameter that also help in this particularly water movement. So in plants, capillarity is added by a small diameter of the trachea element, that is the tracheids and vessels. Okay. So the process of photosynthesis required water. We have discussed that is less than 1% water is used, and the system of xylem vessel from the root to the leaf vein can supply a needed water. So what force does plant use to move water molecules into the leaf parenchyma cells where they are needed? So what force does plant use to move water molecules into the leaf parenchyma cells where they are needed? So the answer to this question is, as water evaporates through the stomata, a thin film of water over the cell is continuous. It results in the pulling of water molecule by molecule into the leaf from the xylem, and that is a pulling of water. So also because of the lower concentration of water vapor in the atmosphere as compared to the stomatal substomatal cavity, the intercellular spaces cavity and intercellular, the water diffuses into the surrounding because the water content is less in the atmosphere, and due to this the water loss occurs from the leaves and or leaf cells, and due to this the transpiration pool will be created, and due to this the water is pulled from the stem xylem or root xylem up in a plant. So this is the thing that you can see here, that how water xylem tube is there in a particular xylem and how water loss is occurring. Now, ultimately, the measurement revealed that the force generated by a transpiration can create a pressure sufficient to lift a xylem sized column of water. Means that is a xylem sized column, whole xylem sized column can be, which can create a sufficient pressure sufficient to lift a xylem sized column of water over 130 meters high. Okay, so that is the one of the important speciality of this. Okay, so that is what about the particularly we can say root pressure theory and the transpiration flow theory, and that are ultimately helping in the water movement up in the plant. So blank water reaching the leaves is used for the photosynthesis. So obviously this is less than 1%. Most of water is lost to the stomata in leaf. The water loss from the plant in the form of vapor, it is known as, obviously it is known as transpiration. Okay, so that is all about the water movement up in a plant. Now we are remaining with the types of transpiration and the phloem transport that we will discuss in the separate lecture. I hope you understood. Thank you everyone.